Yeah, certainly. Certainly back when BlizzCon was happening, he was considered probably one of the best players in the world, actually, even though he didn't really show too many games. I would say when you talk to a lot of the BlizzCon players back then, he was probably actually about 5th out of the 16 players in BlizzCon if they had to do a ranking, behind Strifecrow, Firebat, Kalento, and Tiddler Celestial. So after those big 4 Titans, Tarei was the 5th best player. That's pretty big praise.
Oh yeah, definitely. Out of all the players in North America, that's pretty prestigious title to be given.
Yep.
But it is going to be, we didn't talk about the decks too much. Muzzy is going to be running that Zoo Warlock, and Tarei is going to be running the Freeze Mage. And this matchup, I really like the Freeze Mage in this matchup, and we talked about it a lot yesterday, and it just seems like sometimes you can get to the point where the Zoo just can't really do much. Their board just continually gets frozen, and then by the time you get to the point where you're finally going to kill them, you've already tapped enough to where you get in range of a lot of this Freeze Mage burst. Just have a lot of ways to stop the win conditions that you have as a Zoo.
Yeah. Yeah, just a lot of the early game plays like Doomsayer, Frost Nova Doomsayer. If you can get a Frost Nova Doomsayer against Zoo, it's pretty much game over. Tarei,
Yep.
well, as we mentioned before, he's really favoring Freeze Mage because he really likes those decks where you have to think a lot.
Yeah.
Freeze Mage, Miracle Rogue, Handlock. In fact, at BlizzCon last year, he's the only player to play Mage at all, back when Mage wasn't the strongest class in the world.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier one of the big things is an early Frost Nova Doomsayer. The reason why that's game over is because a lot of times Zoo throws everything out from their hand early on. They have a lot of early drops, so they like to flood the board. And unless they're really playing around that combo, which sometimes they can't even afford to, a lot of times they'll be out of cards or almost out of cards by the time you get to that Doomsayer Frost Nova combo. And then they're consistently tapping every single turn, getting themselves lower every single turn. And a lot of times you stop their momentum enough, and they tap enough to where they just get in range of your burst quick enough.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty good draw, I would say. It makes his board less vulnerable to AoE. The problem with this board, though, is that, yes, it's a lot of creatures, but all the creatures, they just seem so weak. I mean, 2 attack, 3 attack, 3 attack, 2 attack. It's actually not much power on the board at this moment.
Sounded like a song. 1 attack, 2 attack, 3 attack, 4.
Oh.
It's the Monk Hearthstone song.
I see that, I see that.
Monk actually, before every single Hearthstone match, he sings me a lullaby.
A lullaby? Is that what you call it? Are you sure it's not a serenade?
It's it's both. It's both a lullaby and a serenade.
So yeah, Muzzy just playing more around AoE at this point.
Yeah. And he's saving that Loatheb for a key moment, to a point where he really just wants to protect his board. Because throwing it out on turn 5, a lot of times is just the right thing to do. When you're playing a class like this where you are sort of racing against time. But here, he just didn't feel like his board was strong enough, and with the egg, it's protected against AoE enough. To where he wants to save the Loatheb to a turn where he sort of, not absolutely has to use it, but to a turn where he's going to get more out of using it. Like a crucial turn for the mage.
Unfortunately for Muzzy, or perhaps fortunately for him, he drew into the Doom Guard, which means he'll have to play that Loatheb probably in the next 1 or 2 turns in order to get that Doom Guard also out of his hand.
Yeah.
Throwing out the R&B Gal could really bite him in the ass in the coming turns, because Tarei has a Doomsayer in his hand. It's very possible that a freeze, if he draws a freeze, then he won't be able to, Muzzy won't be able to silence the Doomsayer. Typically, Freeze Mage, or rather Zoo, they only run 1 silence, so that's pretty much the only silence on this. But exactly as we called it, Frost Nova Doomsayer, there it is.
Yeah. Judging by some of the cards in this deck as well, this seems like the more traditional Zoo. It doesn't seem like a Demon Zoo hybrid.
Yeah.
Because he ran Ironbeak Owl, which can sometimes be put in the Demon Zoo hybrid, but sometimes they cut it. And also the Argent Squire was a big one that was sort of a big tell in that. You don't really have room for that if you're running things like Void Callers or Mal'Ganis or even things like Bane of Doom.
Yeah, I really have to point out that Tarei is actually running 2 Kona Colds in his hands. This is the second Kona Cold we've seen.
Yeah.
And typically players, they either run 1 Kona Cold or they cut it all together. So this is definitely Tarei's very own style of Freeze Mage. He's built it himself. And Tarei these days, he's not very much in the scene. And I feel like because he's not in the scene that much, he doesn't talk to a lot of players. So he has his own mindset about what decks are good, what tech choices are good, and we're really seeing his personality and his playstyle come into this.
Yeah. In this turn, I mean, we talked about he's waiting for a crucial turn, but he really just didn't have many options here. He's got to start throwing out his cards here. If he just played that turn where all he did was throw out a Haunted Creeper, which would be the only thing that he had mana for, and then pass, he's just not putting on enough pressure turn for turn to be able to kill the mage in time.
Yeah, he has a lot of cards though.
Yeah, Sea Giant probably going to come down here.
Yeah, Sea Giant's really good, not really because of the 8 attack, but mostly because of the 8 health. It's going to be really difficult to kill. Fortunately for Tarei, though, he has both Blizzard and Flame Strike in his hand, so that's going to be at least guaranteed 6 damage. And oh, okay. So you can even consider burning a Frost Fireball.
No, he's got enough damage in his hand to kill him over 2 turns. So next turn he has, I think, exactly 17 damage.
That's
9 with the Fireball, Frostbolt, and then double Ice Lance.
Yes.
So he realizes that he can kill him over 2 turns, and I think that's going to be it. I mean, I don't think there's no way that he could kill him here or pop the block.
Yep.
And this always hurts. I mean, even though he thinks he's in,
he can't even tap at this point because he knows because his opponent fireballed, he probably has close to enough damage, and he's really hoping at this point that it was kind of more like a bluff. He had just slightly like 1 or 2 off, and he'd be able to kill his opponent then.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tarei was like, even if he didn't have this, he had 2 additional turns to draw into extra damage.
Yeah, or just, I mean, stall the game out. He had Frost Nova, and then he said Flame Strike, so he could have drawn into even more things that were going to stall the game out for him. So, I mean, that right there is just one of the reasons why you can tell that Freeze Mage is just so strong against Zoo. It just didn't seem like it just fights for the board better early on, and it doesn't run out of steam like Mech Mage can tend to do. So when you're in a same matchup and you just have more ways to draw cards, a lot of times it can come down to that. But this matchup is going to be Muzzy Zoo once again versus Tarei's Warrior. And I actually didn't see the cards that he mulliganed away to see if this was Control Warrior or Grim Patron. But Ysera sort of gives us an indication.
I mean, we're not going to be charging Yseras anytime soon, are we?
No.
I guess maybe in some alternate universe you could Warsong Commander, then play Ysera, then Shrinkmeister your Ysera, and that would work, right?
If you could have Shrinkmeister, if you Shrinkmeistered your Ysera after you played it, would it gain charge?
Probably not.
Probably
to be honest. But in that alternate universe, the rules would be changed up, of course.
Yeah. Indeed.
So this is probably one of the best hands you could get as Control Warrior without getting Fiery War Axe. Unfortunately, getting Fiery War Axe is just so huge that it's actually not a great hand against Zoo.
Yeah, and even sometimes nowadays, Fiery War Axe isn't even enough.
Yeah, you need the follow-ups.
Yeah.
The problem with exactly. The problem with Tarei is like he has the exact follow-ups he needs. The problem is he didn't get the Fiery War Axe, which is like 90% of the equation.
Yeah, you need the Fiery War Axe to pave the way for cards like Armor Smith and Acolyte of Pain. If you can get Fiery War Axe, Armor Smith, Acolyte of Pain, and like Cruel Taskmasters early on to help you draw cards and to help you make your board a little stronger and clear the first creatures that would match up against like your Acolyte of Pain, like we just see here. But I mean, Imp Gank Boss is just so hard unless you have Death Bite just right on curve. It's just super tough, and you can see no weapons.
Yeah, at this point, Tarei probably really wanted to draw a weapon at this point. Anti-Keelbot and Control Warrior. So what I see there is he really wants to be really good against aggro because he's seen Muzzy play a lot of Zoo lately. And unfortunately, it's just not panning out for him.
Yeah, Unstable Ghoul as well is also a tech choice made for aggro. There's a lot of 1/1 tokeny stuff nowadays with Violet Teachers and Imp Gang Boss especially. if you're targeting Zoo, that you can put an unstable ghoul on the board and be able to like cleanly clear up like Imp Gang Boss imps or Implosion imps.
Well, this is the exact situation that you described. A lot of 1/1s.
Yeah, this is where unstable ghoul becomes really strong. And you can hide an Acolyte of Pain behind it as well, just to give you a little bit of extra card draw. So this will effectively deal with most of the board. Oh, just kidding. Sea Giant. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Sea Giant is just so strong.
Yeah.
Sea Giant was an addition. I think maybe Zixo was one of the first players to do it.
Yeah, back in actually around the time when the first WCA tournament happened.
Oh,
in
really?
2014, he added Sea Giant into his Zoo deck, and a lot of people copied it.
Yeah.
He eventually took it out for Lotheb.
Yeah. This was before Implosion as well.
The problem with playing the Sea Giant here is that it's going to get 1 damage. It's the unstable ghoul is going to do 1 damage to it, and then its execute's going to be really easy here.
Yeah. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. He has to play the Sea Giant while he has enough creatures on the board to be able to play Sea Giant this early. But then he also has to damage it, which he knows that damaging it against warriors is just asking it to be executed.
Yes. Board's looking plenty threatening here. No brawl, but this might even be better. We even see a second unstable ghoul added to the equation, so certainly very teched up against Zoo. And this, yeah, might be one of those situations where Tarei might be bringing 3 decks that are good against Zoo. Of course, his last deck is Druid, but it might just be a Fatigue Druid.
It could be. It could be that Fatigue, that Mill Druid. I really like the unstable ghoul here. The reason why, you think, why wouldn't I use up all your mana and play the Sludge Belcher? Because if you play the Sludge Belcher, with those 1/1 tokens on the board, you could use cards like Abusive Sergeant or like Direwolf to trade
Alpha would be so good.
to trade up into the Sludge Belcher. And so you're basically wasting that taunt with all those 1/1 creatures on the board that are effectively useless. So what playing Unstable Ghoul does there, it allows you to armor up, it allows you to play a weaker card in that situation, but still get pretty much just as much value out of it as you would have, in theory, out of the Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, we're going to see the natural enemy of Sylvanas, actually. It's going to be Implosion.
Implosion, yeah. If you roll high here, it's pretty much almost guaranteed to steal an imp. We'll see what he rolls. Ooh. A 2. And with a Knife Juggler on the board, it's good, but all those juggles just went face.
So if Muzzy wants to play around Brawl...
Congrats, Tides of Time, for hitting rank 5.
Wow. Tournament champions can only hit rank 5.
Tournament champion Tides of Time. It's rank 5. Fantastic stuff. Congratulations.
Yeah, so Muzzy actually has to trade here. He pretty much instantly loses the game due to the Brawl in Tarei's hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he does trade, still that Brawl's going to do so much work because Muzzy's hand is completely empty at this point, besides that Bone Power Overwhelming.
Yeah, Brawl is in the same category as we talked about earlier. That is really rough, because now, even if he wins the Brawl, whatever comes out of it, he's going to steal anyway. That just completely takes the wind out of his sails. And I mean, Muzzy has no cards left in his hand. He has a Power Overwhelming, which is virtually useless. I guess that's best case scenario. But still, he's basically put him out of reach. This game is nearly unwinnable for Muzzy at this point.
Oh man, Defender of Argus, yet another situational card. And we might just see a taunted up egg here. Really not threatening at all.
Yeah. Alex Shaza, yeah.
This turn might just be throw down a Sarah on the board against Zoo. I mean, if you can throw down a Sarah on the board cleanly against Zoo, you're probably in a good position, I would say.
I've played a lot of Control Warrior. Probably close to 2,000 games of Control Warrior.
Don't say.
I don't say. I've probably said that so many times. And actually, since the last time I said that, I've probably played an additional 100 games of Control Warrior. I can count on one hand how many times I've been able to play Ysera against Zoo and still win the game. It is that low.
Oh man, even in a dream. That's probably the best one, maybe outside of Ysera Awakens for this board.
Yeah. Just so tough to be able to deal with. And he has so many like emergency cards left in his hand. Anti-Keelbot to bring him back up to 23 health. Even if Muzzy finds a way to piece together 20 damage, which is very unlikely, he could still bring himself back up to 15 with Alex Straza.
Yeah, not only that, he kind of has to fear his opponent just lethaling him out of nowhere with something like Nightmare plus Grom.
Yeah. That's true. Or anything, really. I mean, he has 10 damage already on the board. He'd only need to piece together 7. Without a taunt, all he would need to be like a Gore Howl.
Yeah.
Or 7 armor, he could shield slam the face.
Ooh, the infamous shield slam face play. I haven't thought about that for a while.
Yeah, not many players think about it. It's one of those misunderstood Hearthstone plays.
Yeah. Some more damage probably going to face here. At this point, you can't trade, you can't play for the long game just because of that Ysera, honestly. Oh, Gore Howl.
I actually wasn't expecting a Gore Howl, to be honest, but
I mean, it kind of does make sense in this kind of deck, to be honest.
It does.
Because it looks like to be a very grindy deck with
anti-Keelbot.
Yeah, with 1 anti-Keelbot with 2 unstable ghouls. And basically, it looks like the finishers are Ysera and Gore Howl. Those are the 2 cards not found in every Control Warrior, but they're 2 cards that help you eventually win the long game.
Yeah. And that's going to be game number 2, once again going over to Tarei. 1 win away from securing his spot against Fireback. Wild Growth, that is a good start for being able to deal with this.
Oh, 2 Wild Growths.
Whoa!
So Zoo is like one of the only decks that can actually punish Wild Growth, because usually when you Wild Growth, you give up 2 mana, so that means you're not wrathing on that turn, clearing your opponent's side of the board, which means Zoo on those first 2 or 3 turns, they can develop their board very strongly with 1-drops and 2-drops, and then go from there. Unfortunately for Muzzy, this is a very bad draw. Not getting a 1-drop, he really would have preferred a Flame Imp or even like an Argent Squire here. Yeah,
I'm a little bit interested here. When talking to a lot of big Zoo players, a lot of them have said that keeping Imp Gang Boss against most matchups is actually the right call. Just because playing that on turn 3 is super strong. It risks you not drawing into 1-drops on time.
Yeah.
But Muzzy actually threw it away, and it didn't actually make his hand much stronger.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same concept of a lot of Mech Mage players I've talked to. They keep Goblin Blast Mage in their opening hand just because it's so strong, so impactful that you always want to play it on turn 4.
Yeah. Maybe the Druid match is a little different just because of that swipe that we talked about earlier, but I can't imagine that making too much of a difference. Oh, wow. This is actually pretty devastating. This Knife Juggler is going to put in some work because now he can cleanly trade into this. And, I mean, this is really good positioning because he's going to be able to benefit from both Direwolves. Both Direwolves. So Force of Nature is going to have to be used here just to clear off, to try and stop some of this momentum. I mean, I guess that's best case scenario.
Yeah, that was actually a really good Force of Nature because it 1 for 3'd essentially. Killed 3 2-drops, and now it basically forces Muzzy to tap and give up some of the tempo that he has. The 2 cards in his hand before he tapped are very situational, and again, his hand is completely situational at this point.
Yeah.
2 swipes are going to be so good here, though.
Yes.
Maybe not on this turn, but okay, yeah, I guess he goes for it. But in future turns, he's going to be able to clear whatever 1/1s that are summoned. And again, by playing Shade of Naxxramas, because it's stealth at the moment, cloaked, again, Implosion won't be any good. Abusive Sergeant won't even be any good here. Perhaps he still plays it, though, because he sees his opponent has used a swipe already.
Yeah.
But if you play it, now that means the egg is much harder to activate, and this play actually just plays directly into what Tarei wants. And wow, even a Keeper of the Grove here. So this board will be cleared at the end of this turn. Besides the egg, the 0/1 egg. That being said, Druid is still at 8 HP. So it's very possible for like a top deck power overwhelming plus maybe a Doomguard to just end the game.
You could see Muzzy, as soon as he saw the second swipe come out, he winced. Like he was in physical pain from seeing the second swipe come out. So he knows that it's possible that he might be in a little bit of trouble.
Oh, that was really interesting. He decided to kill off the Void Caller or Void Walker with that Keeper instead of silencing the egg, and that might hurt him at this point. because of the power of overwhelming that Muzzy just drew.
Yeah, there's actually no way, unless he implosions his own egg for 4, that he can play Sea Giant as well this turn. Because in order to play it, he'll have to get 4 imps from the implosion. But if he uses it on the Keeper of the Grove, then it would take away a creature, so the Sea Giant would cost 4 anyway, and he wouldn't be able to use it.
Yeah, I think this
so
is...
so he has to just play the Sea Giant as is.
It's a little sad, but...
It's still a strong card.
Exactly, exactly.
But 7 mana is not really the plan that you make for Sea Giant when you put him in your deck. You're thinking that you're going to be able to play him on like turn, or maybe not turn 3 or 4, but for 3 or 4 mana at some point in the game. All right.
Very quick turn here.
Yeah.
You might have considered...
Oh, he could have killed the Shade.
Yeah.
I guess you can never really count on that.
Well,
He's going to be able to kill it anyway. Yeah. Actually, a really strong turn for Muzzy.
Yeah, a very quick turn. I would have probably thought a bit more about that, but I guess Muzzy was planning a turn while it was on his turn. Oh, Kel'Thuzad, again. It speaks to the grindy nature of Tarei's decks. We saw Freeze Mage is obviously somewhat grindy. It tries to stall out the game. We saw his Control Warrior was... for Control Warrior even, it was especially grindy with the Ysera, with Gorehowl, and 2 unstable goals. He knows Kel'Thuzad can't do much here, and he'll have to concede and go to the next game.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's...
In the past... well, in the past year, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. The Druid has never really fallen out of favor. And Rogue was so strong for a while because of the popularity of Paladin. Or Rogue just preyed on Paladin so much, and Or Rogue is still good. It's just a little bit weaker against some of the decks that are current right now. Yeah. Since there's a lot of Zoo, that means there's going to be a lot of Face Hunters to prey on the Zoo, and Rogue just not fare well against Face Hunter.
Now, I want to point out, we actually haven't seen any combo pieces. Oh, we've seen Force of Nature from
Tarei, so Force of Nature. So he might be running 1 with Kel'Thuzad. A lot of times, at least one of either piece is cut. But we're most likely going to see an Innervate Emperor Thorson here.
Being very patient here. Tarei, he had a chance to innervate out the Pilot Shredder, but then his curve would suck. He had a chance to innervate out the Sludge Belcher, and he would have a decent curve. But this is kind of the more aggressive play. Essentially, he trades that. He trades more of a tempo for an early game for about 2.5 innervates.
2.5 innervates. He actually kept Innervate and Emperor Thorsan in his opening hand, which is a bold move, but mostly a really strong move. You're conceding over the early game, essentially. But, I mean, if you can bring out an Emperor Thorsan on turn 4, a lot of times it gives you enough value out of your hand that you're going to be able to catch up whatever you draw with the other 2 cards that you threw away.
Yeah, exactly. Really great choice from Tarei, and I believe it's going to pay off, because now Tarei in the following 2 or 3 turns is going to be just really strong plays overall. And here, essentially Tarei's second Innervate will be used on this turn.
Yeah. But he's still got plenty more where that came from. It's crazy. If you think about it, if that Emperor Thorsan hadn't come out, that play would have just been a Sludge Belcher.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to talk about Muzzy's hand a little bit here as well, though. He's actually got a decent hand. He's got both Blade Flurries early on, which is something that you want against Druids to make for big Blade Flurry turns later on. And he's also got Prep Sprint to be able to refill his hand.
Yeah, not only that, but he's going to have a or rather, Tarei is going to have a Kel'Thuzad on just turn 7. And it's very possible that he's going to get value from it on turn 7 against the Keeper of the Grove. Or with the Keeper of the Grove, rather. If he draws into, I don't know, maybe a 2-drop here.
Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Boom. So Muzzy's going to be running more of the minion-based Oil Rogue. And what that tells me is that oftentimes the second Tinker Sharpsword Oil is cut in favor of the Dr. Boom.
Yeah.
And if he's running a list like Mr. Yagut's list, who's a very popular Rogue player, then there's going to be a Sludge Belcher in this list as well.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of Rogues play both Dr. Boom and Double Sprint and Double Oil. But another card they can cut is like one of their healing.
Yeah.
Like they cut like Anti-Keelbot or second Earth Ring Farseer.
Yeah. Or another card that's cut is the South Sea Deckhand.
Oh, that's true. Very true, yeah.
We've seen players like Hypes, he's actually cut that card for Defy Ringleader.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He really likes those scrubs.
Yeah. This is our town scrub. I am a turtle.
So, unfortunately for Muzzy, he did not play around Kel'Thuzad.
Not something that you can usually afford to play around in Druid.
Oh, man. See, thing is, Tarei got the order wrong. He doesn't really play around he doesn't play Kel'Thuzad much, I guess, because normally what you want to do is you want to trade your minions in first, give your opponent more hope that, oh, wow, this is the only way you could deal with Dr. Boom, and then slam down the Kel'Thuzad.
Yeah. Give him a small ounce of hope, and then make it come crashing back down. And this is really tough. Okay, so...
Somewhat fortunately, though, Muzzy can deal with this with some kind of Blade Flurry.
But if he Blade Flurries here, that's the only thing he's doing. Because he doesn't have any preps to sort of leverage to make these a little bit stronger. So he's going to have to Blade Flurry and then throw both these Boombots in. So he's dealing with the board and putting some face damage on, but he's not developing anything himself.
Yeah, so usually the strength of Rogue is just both developing. Oh!
It keeps a bot.
Yeah, it's good. The strength of Rogue is really developing the board and clearing at the same turn, but because Tarei's board was so strong that Muzzy couldn't do that, and now Tarei again will have the initiative. He's kind of staring down at a lot of he doesn't have a lot of health now, but it really depends on how much this Boombot does. It's going to be 4 to face. Ouch! It's going to be so hurtful.
So that's a really critical choice there. He actually chose to kill the Boombot before he played Dr. Boom. So what he valued the resources of having stronger creatures on the board more than his health, which is really dangerous against Oil Rogue because they can do a lot of burst in a single turn.
Yeah.
Very risky.
Not too sure about that, but usually Sap is actually not that great against Dr. Boom because you just give your opponent more Doombots.
More Boombots.
But just because the Druid is on 11 health, this Dr. Boom might just be stuck in a Tarei's hand for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's all about the tempo here.
Oh, man, 4 to the face again.
I think that's actually pretty good. I don't think, unless he's within 14, I don't think he's too worried about it.
Yeah, so I would have to think Wrath for 1 here and then a swipe. Tarei's actually really close to lethal with Savage Roar, Innervate, and possibly drawing into a Force of Nature next turn. I think at this point he just wants to cycle as much as possible, draw into that Force of Nature, and of course Dr. Boom comes in the field just to get potentially more damage.
Well, this could set up, this is the best way that he can set up for a next turn lethal, because it's the way that he gets the most power on the board and the most creatures on the board. So that way next turn he can set up a Savage Roar play. But there's another Sap.
So, okay, so by playing the Azure Drake, he's kind of offering up that Azure Drake in order to tank the Boombots, perhaps.
Yeah. He can Blade Flare and Eviscerate to clear the Dr. Boom and save the Sap for maybe an opportunity where he'll be able to push through for lethal.
I like just using the Sap, though. I feel like at this point you really want to save the Eviscerate in order to just finish off your opponent on the next turn. Exactly.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, because he's sitting him at 10 here. He's going to sit him at 8 after this Blade Flurry.
Ouch!
And the Azure Drake lives. Nothing goes. Everything goes to face, though, so that's risky. Force of Nature would have been lethal there. I mean, I think Muzzy's in a pretty good spot. The only thing that he has to worry about is combo at this stage, and he's got Sprint in order to draw into extra damage for the next turn. If a taunt doesn't come down here, he would have guaranteed lethal. I
actually just like playing the Sludge Belcher in addition to one of the Pilot Shredders and perhaps fitting in the Hero Power or a Wild Growth in.
Yeah.
I don't like the Ancient of Lore as much because you've seen both Saps, so that if you just throw down a Sludge Belcher with Taunt, you pretty much guarantee to at least tank 7 damage, and that's a lot better than the 5 damage that you heal from Ancient of Lore.
And even though the Emperor Thorsan was played like 10 turns ago, Tarei is still reaping the benefits because being able to fit in an extra hero power here after playing a Paladin Shredder for 3 mana plus a Sludge Belcher could end up being pretty crucial. Because every point of health is going to matter here when you're trying to worry about the burst. He knows that he's seen both Blade Flurries.
Yeah, both Blade Flurries. I believe he's seen one Eviscerate as well in the early game.
I'm trying to think what it was used on, but... Oh, Prep Sprint. That's probably the best card he could have drawn in that situation, because now he's going to find a couple opportunities. That doesn't do it. That doesn't do it. That doesn't do it. Nope. Not quite.
Yeah, not quite, but just being able to fit in an Eviscerate plus SI Agent will allow him to do 4 more damage to face and get him even closer.
Yeah. The thing is, he needs to clear as much as he can. He doesn't have lethal here, so he needs to clear as much as he can off the board to try and just reduce the chance that he dies the following turn.
He really wants to play the Lotheb in this situation just to prevent his opponent from comboing him, but he can't really fit it in and clear the board at the same time.
Well, if he Lotheb here, then all he would need to be a Saboteur, even with Lotheb, would be enough. So I think he has to clear off.
Yeah, this is his only play.
Yeah. So, Savage Roar by itself is not quite lethal. He'd be 1 damage off. Sitting at 10 health.
Oh, Force of Nature.
Right off the top. And with that Force of Nature, Tarei is going to take a 3-1 victory over Muzzy. Very well played. He put himself in a position where he gave himself 3 chances to win with that Druid, and he does it after 2. He will move on to face Firebat